Hello and welcome to Microsoft Hates Greg. My name is Greg Deckler, and today we're going to be talking fabrics. I got my fabric robe on, and we're going to be talking specifically fabric data science because it's the one piece I really haven't really covered. A couple things before we get started, though. Right prior to recording this video, I recorded 3 new DAX for Human videos, so they are coming. I promise. And those videos take more time and effort than you might expect. It's a totally different recording process. I have to deal with green screens, OBS, all this stuff. And then my son edits them up. So they are coming, and I'm going to be getting back on track with the schedule to get those out regularly. Hopefully once a week. It will be we'll continue on with that schedule. Okay. Secondly, I'm really tired of complaining about fabric. So what I've decided to do is I'm going to split this video into at least 2 parts. And I'm going to get all of my opinions, and bitching and moaning out of the way in this first video, hopefully. And then the next videos, I'll just be demonstrating the functionality as it happens to be. So those are the 2 things I wanted to cover. All right, so let's get into it. So I've created a brand new workspace here, Fabric Data Science. And so the way, what they recommend to go to is you go down here to the data science, this little Power BI icon, go to the data science tab. And here we have this. All right, so it's okay. It's like, okay, where do I go from here? And so normally when I get into these situations, because this is not very helpful to me, in my opinion, I'm gonna say, okay, I'm gonna just use an example. So I'm just gonna say use an example. It gives me some examples, right? Book detection. I don't know which one of these are complex, which ones aren't. Machine failure sounds pretty interesting. So let's just click on that one. I've done some stuff with, mean time between failures and things like that. So that one sparks an interest to me. So then we get to this. So yeah, so this is the sample they provide. So nothing about the all right, first impressions. Nothing about this wants me to take this any further at all. Okay, all I see in here is like, okay, so I get WordPad, where I can write code, and everything I do is basically going to be writing code. So that to me is terrible. All right, first off, like this is nothing about this makes me want to proceed any further, with going down this path. And it's a completely different experience than I had when like 6 years ago, when I first started getting into machine learning using Azure Machine Learning Studio, the classic version. Um, that program I still hold up as some of the greatest work that Microsoft's ever done, in terms of software, because it was engaging. The documentation was just amazing. The interface was engaging. It made the whole process of, because I came at the machine learning, so I had like an AI machine learning class in college, but it had been decades since I'd really ever done anything with it. So I was coming at it as a complete, noob, if you will. And and if you're not familiar with it, the machine learning classic, right, is kind of this. This is, where you could pull things in from over here. Everything was very well documented. You just pulled things in, you wired it up together. The sample really, I think I had my first Power BI, or Power BI machine learning model probably built within like an hour and a half, maybe, of like I went through the sample. Okay, now I understand it. Went through some documentation and then built my first one. And this was actually kind of one of the first ones, you know, back in March of 2017, where I wired up our CRM opportunities and then tried to do predict whether we are going to win that opportunity or not win that opportunity, right? And we actually incorporated the model and that into our opportunity assessment process. So, I mean, it was very quick, to get started and get going, and I didn't have to write any code. Um, Maybe people feel differently by that. I can write code. I've written code. I've written code my entire career, and I feel comfortable writing code. Um, but in my opinion, if you're developing a piece of software and you force the user of that software to have to write code, you've immediately, to a certain degree, failed as a software developer. Okay, that's just my opinion. So when I see stuff like this, where it's just going to be all I'm going to be doing is writing code for everything, it does not excite me in the least. It's a total failure of UI UX design, in my opinion. And maybe you're saying, well, Greg, this is how data scientists, this is how they do it. They do it in these notebooks and they write Python code and blah blah blah. Well, setting Python code aside, which is a programming language that is the worst programming, it should be thrown off a cliff. Python, it's the worst programming language ever conceived. It's like somebody created Python as a hobby project, and then it's just for what inexplicable reasons became popular, which is exactly what happened, right? I mean, it's like the inventor of Python chose every wrong thing to do in a programming language and just rolled it all into one language. It's the worst thing in the world. So getting that out of the way, that this thing defaults to freaking Python. Um, it's just, why are you forcing me to write code and all this? Because I already know, Microsoft, you're capable of doing better. You're capable of doing. I could actually, so with Machine Learning Studio Classic, I could do all this stuff, create my experiments, and then actually deploy that out to a web service. I didn't have to write one lick of code, right? Not one lick of code. And so, and it was easy and it was engaging. It was fun to do it. And none of this speaks to me as being fun. None of this speaks to me like what I would normally expect from a Microsoft product. Um, that there's been significant effort put into UI UX design. This is this is Notepad where I can run code in. I mean, and that's like where they, well, we'll just give them WordPad and they can run code in it, and that's where the UX design like stopped. Um, it's god awful. It's garbage. It's just awful. Just initial impressions of it. And I can't get over that it's a Microsoft product because I know they're capable of doing better. And a perfect example is Power Query Editor. Power Query Editor is, in my opinion, one of the top 10 pieces of software that I've ever seen. And that's not just Microsoft software, that's software. Um, it's such a great design and user experience, in my opinion, right? I mean, it just all logically makes sense in terms of, for data wrangling. I've got my data front and center here. I can use the GUI to manipulate the data, and do all kinds of fancy transformations in that. And it all gets recorded over here, right? It all, I see my transformations in real time. And then the genius stroke of all of this, right? The genius stroke is that if I want to write code, I can, right? I can just bring up the advanced editor and I can start plugging in M code, right? So where is this level of design effort and thoughtfulness and put into ease of use in this garbage that we have here? There's none of it. Like there's no reason why Microsoft couldn't have essentially taken more or less this concept or something similar to Power Query Editor and and be writing the Python notebook behind the scenes, right? So if you wanted to write and work with a Python notebook, you could. But for the people that are newer to this and they don't want to write the code because they're coming out from a citizen data science perspective, they don't want to go into all this garbage. They can do it in a much easier, much more intuitive way. And I suppose you're maybe saying out there, some of you, that, well, Greg, for data, the citizen data scientists, this is for real data scientists. If you want citizen data scientists, there's AutoML. Yeah, a couple problems with that. One, AutoML is almost too dumbed down, right? It's almost like consumer grade data science, not for like a citizen data science person, the way I would classify them. Two, if you think you're a real data scientist and you're doing this, you're wrong. Real data scientists are called mathematicians and statisticians, and they're coming up with all the algorithms that that you're just using their tinker toys. I'm sorry if you consider yourself a true data scientist. You're a citizen data scientist unless you're coming up with those algorithms, in my opinion. Those are the real data scientists, the people that are coming up with the core algorithms that then, somebody bakes into the, a Python module or something like that. Okay, just my opinion out there. It's worth what you paid for it. So anyway, that's all of this, right? So I think I've run through everything I wanted to say about this. This is god awful. Just initial. None of this makes me want to continue. It's also funny to me that like Isn't this supposed to be fabric? Nope, we still got Synapse all over in here. So Synapse notebooks, not fabric notebooks. Apparently, I didn't know Synapse notebooks were still in preview. I thought fabric notebooks were in preview, but I thought on the Synapse side of things, those were actually in GA, but maybe I'm incorrect about that. So anyway, that's all I have. Hopefully I've gotten all of my bitching and moaning out of the way in this video, and then we can just, I'm not even excited to make the second part of this video. This all looks terrible to me. But I'm going to do it for you guys. You're the viewers that watch this channel, all 12 of you. I'm going to do it for you, and we're going to get through it together. And it's going to be great. That's it. Have a good one.